BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Hello, listeners. Stitch here from Mickey's Marvels. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of our Patrons Roundtable, The Hive. We recorded this over Zoom audio, so it's not going to have the same audio quality that you're used to from our podcasts. But we hope that you'll continue to listen and enjoy this wonderful conversation we had with our patrons. And without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to our first ever episode of the BQN Patrons Roundtable called The Hive. I am but one of the hosts on the network. I'm Casey Pettitt, host of Mickey's Marvels. We've got a few other hosts on here as well. Before we get into that, just for any listeners out there who are not patrons, if you want to participate in this, just go to patreon.com/BQN and you can join there. We will do this for all the levels. So $1 or more will greatly help our network. And you can also have access to our kind of private Facebook group as well. Beyond that, follow us wherever you're getting your podcasts and, on Twitter and Instagram, BQN Podcasts, and on Facebook in the BQN Collective. With that, we'll get into some introductions. I'll have everyone introduce themselves who's here. I'll start with Chrissy. Just let us know who you are and where you're recording from today.
So, hi. I'm Chrissie De Clerck-Szilagyi. You may recognize my voice from History with the Szalagyis and from Infinite Diversity here on BQN. I am coming to you from mid-Michigan area, if you kind of the middle of the hand, if you're familiar with that kind of thing. Well, middle, more toward the bay, but historian, Star Trek fan, BQN, both, I guess I would say host, patron, and producer.
Nice. I guess I never said where I'm from. I'm in Spokane, Washington. How about Kevin? Let's go with you. I'm just going to go around who's on my screen here.
Sure. I'm Kevin Scharf. I am one of the hosts of Galaxy Class here on the network. I am located just outside the small town of Orillia, Ontario, which is about an hour's drive north of Toronto, where they film all the new Star Trek. So I watch all those shows more for trying to figure out if I know where they're filming at instead of the plot. I spent half of this week's episode Googling local castles, but so that's me, and I am happy to be here. It's fun to chat with everybody.
Awesome. Yeah. Jim, let's go to you.
I'm Jim. I'm a patron of BQN, particularly of Galaxy Class, and I am in right now very hot St. Paul, Minnesota.
Nice. Peter, welcome.
Oh, hi. It's nice to be here. My name is Peter Hong. I'm from New York City in New York. I'm a patron of BQN.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, and Thad.
Hi, I'm Thad. I'm a co-host of Infinite Diversity with Chrissy, and I am in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And last but not least, Mr. Tony Robinson.
Hello. Well, hi, I'm Tony. Now, I live in England, but right now, for reasons unknown to me, I'm stuck in a ship in the middle of the Mediterranean, heading for Barcelona, where I dock in the morning. From now, what time is it? Well, it's too complicated. It'll be early in the morning when I get off the ship, and that's all I can say. And then I'll be back in my normal habitat in the UK. And what do I do on BQN? I just mess around with all the artwork and pretty little pictures that appear now and again on wherever you get your podcasts. That's what I do.
And great artwork it is. We definitely appreciate it.
With a little help from my friends.
There you go. Well, today, it's funny, we were talking before we hit record today that we're all most of us anyways, I think, wearing some sort of Star Trek paraphernalia. But we are all definitely Star Trek fans, but and we can definitely dive into Star Trek, but we had some just kind of general, like this being our first patrons roundtable, kind of want to just talk about podcasts in general and start with a question. why are you listening to podcasts? We in the olden days there were radio shows, and there's still talk radio, and but now we've all seemed to come to podcasts. So I'll kind of make it a free for all if just want to unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'll just start calling on people. But feel free to unmute yourself and tell us what is it you like about listening to podcasts.
Maybe I'll start. This is Peter. I think for me, I enjoy the podcast because partially it's the convenience factor that you can listen to it whenever you're available to listen to it, whenever it's convenient. There's also a lot of variety of subjects out there. We'll all kind of focus on Star Trek, but there's a lot of different topics, a lot of different interests. So I think there's just a lot of information. It's another way of learning about the interests or hobbies or different topics. So I think it's just very flexible, very convenient. And there's so many out there. Just for Star Trek, there's all these, each podcast have a different slant on the fandom or on the franchise, whether it's a analysis or review show or a news show or reviewing the latest episode on all these different slices of what Star Trek is and what it means. So it's just a lot of availability and a lot of options. So that's some of the reasons I listen to podcasts. I think I've been listening to it probably for about I think since maybe 08 or 09, that's when I discovered podcasts, listening to podcasts. So it's been over 10 plus years, and kind of ebbs and flows, but I've always listened to something over the years.
I started listening to podcasts. I think I probably got in pretty early. I want to say 15, at least 13 to 15 years ago. I just got an iPod, the kind with the click wheel, if you remember those. And I had a job that was pretty mindless. So, and I didn't want to listen to the same songs over and over again that I had on my iPad, and heard about podcasts. And there are some that I'm still listening to that I listened to way back then. And like Peter said, there are podcasts about every topic under the sun. And if I find hosts that I like and a topic that is something that interests me, I'll stick with it. And I love listening. I still have a job that's pretty mindless, and so I'm able to listen for several hours a day at work, which is good. It keeps my brain from melting.
I got into podcasts because, does anybody remember Air America Radio in the early aughts? No? All right. Okay, so I started listening to podcasts because this wasn't available where I was living, because I was doing my undergrad in Laramie, Wyoming then. Air America was supposed to be the answer to all of the conservative talk radio. It was supposed to be liberal talk radio. It was started by Al Franken of senatorial and SNL fame. And so I started listening to podcasts because I wanted to listen to shows that were on when either I didn't have the station or I was in class or working at the time. And so that was in 2003. So that goes back to like it was weird that they had their shows as podcasts at that time. Or it was just starting to be a thing. And I've just not stopped since. Air America's long gone, but a couple of the people who were on there are still going strong. I listen to Sam Seder on the Majority Report that originally started on Air America. And I haven't listened to it in a while, but you guys know WTF with Mark Maron?
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of that at least. Yeah, he started on Air America. He was one of the morning guys on their show called Morning Sedition, which I just loved. Yes. Now, I listen to stuff on our network. I never miss Democracy Now! So I'm going to plug that. I mentioned Majority Report. I'll plug that. Of course, after you're done listening to all of our podcasts on BQN is when you do that. But
once we've all caught up on everything.
Yeah. But it's so nice because you can just listen to whenever, if you got a commute. I love to have it on like mowing the lawn. Sounds strange, but so yeah, I wish I had more time of it because I am always playing catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, I listen in the shower. I listen while I'm driving. I can't listen to it while I work though, because I end up just sitting there listening to it and not working. Well, like I get totally sidetracked. So yeah, it's hard for me.
Understand that.
Jim, you got anything to add?
For me, I basically started listening because as much as I also do like listening to music, you can only listen to the same songs, no matter how much you like them, so many times before you just need something different, something more, basically. And because of that, by extension, when I found podcasts, I just started listening to them, and I pretty much have gone nonstop since. Like I listen to a lot of different podcasts. I listen to a lot of Star Trek podcasts. Galaxy Class comes to mind because I'm looking at Kevin on my screen right now, and it is one of my favorites. But I listen to a wide range of Star Trek podcasts, and I also listen to some non-Star Trek podcasts too, because I'm also into sports and stuff like that as well.
Nice. How about you, Thad?
I started listening to podcasts, I think in 2006, was when I got my first iPod with the wheel. And around the same time, this is when I had been switching most of my usage to Apple products. I had gotten a Mac around the same time. And so, as most people know, or maybe not, the name podcast comes from iPod. It was the original way that you could do podcasts, or at least they became popular, was through iTunes. And so because I had been getting into the Mac ecosystem, I introduced to that. I started listening to some Apple-focused podcasts, but I branched out to other things, and I'm still always listening to podcasts. There are some that I listen to, some shows that I listen to. I'm like, as soon as the episode comes out, I listen to it right away. And then there's some that I'll build up like 5, 10, 15 episodes and then binge. It depends on the show. But I, like Chrissy was saying, mowing the lawn, driving, anything where I do not have anything that does not completely occupy my mind, I am going to be listening to a podcast, because I have ADHD, and if I don't do that, I don't pay attention. Like in a weird way, like it's safer for me to drive listening to a podcast than it is for me to just drive, because if I just drive without someone talking at me, my mind's gonna wander.
Yeah.
I can completely understand you on that one. I'm the same kind of way.
Yeah, it's my mind pretty much wanders if like no matter what I'm doing, like, and I don't listen when I mow the lawn because I feel like I can't hear over my lawnmower. But
that's what noise canceling headphones are for.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that's a good point.
That's
Yeah.
why I wear headphones.
It only takes me like 12 minutes to mow my lawn, so I can get through that.
Well, to you then.
Jealous of that.
I got like a 2-3 hour depending on.
Oh no.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, it's good exercise though.
Yeah.
Walk, get the steps in.
Mm-hmm. For podcasts, for me, I saw them more or less originate with the iPhone, I guess. It was just an icon that was on the iPhone, and I didn't really understand what they were. And then I just thought, well, it's just other radio shows kind of recorded. Well, obviously, that's if they were radio shows, they were recorded episodes and placed on the phone for anyone to subscribe to or listen to. But to me, that wasn't very interesting. I didn't particularly think that was an interesting thing to do. I thought, who would want to go back and listen to somebody's radio show from 3 weeks ago or last year or whatever? It didn't make sense. But it became relevant later on when I got into a thing that most of you don't know, that how people got to know who I am. But I got involved in a thing called Project Enterprise, which is through a friend of mine called Paul Olson, who worked on the model of the Enterprise for Star Trek The Motion Picture. He was one of the team that created the look and the feel. And it was, in fact, what he did was he painted the surface detail of the Enterprise only as it appears in the motion picture, because after that, ILM painted over his work and changed the shininess of it for a totally different lighting system that they use for visual effects and special effects. But that's beside the point. The point was that in order to try and draw attention to the project and find people who might be willing to support it, the quickest and easiest way for me to do it was to find Star Trek related podcasts. And that's why I delved into the podcast world. And there was a lot of horrible stuff out there, I have to tell you. And but there was some good stuff as well. And so, but what I locked in on is probably one of the most recognized podcasts in the Trek world, and that's Mission Log, hosted by John Champion, and at that time Ken Ray. But what attracted me to listen to Mission Log, because I couldn't tell one podcast from another, was that it carried the Roddenberry name. And I just thought, well, if Roddenberry's involved, this has to be good. So I started listening, and I thought, oh my God, what have I missed? Why haven't I been listening to podcasts? And that's how it worked for me. And it opens up a whole new world, a vista of different subjects and genres and things like that. One of my favorite podcasts is with a singer called, you may or may not have heard of her, called Jessie Ware. And she has a fantastic couple of albums out, and they're really kind of jazz fusion type albums, kind of music I like to listen to. But when she's not singing, she does a very interesting podcast at home with her mother, whereby her mother and her cook food, and they invite a singer or a producer or a well-known person in the music industry around to chat about music and taste the food. It's like come over to my house and taste this wonderful pie I made. And it's, who wouldn't want to go? And she's a well-known entertainer herself. So there's so much variety to be found in podcasts that you couldn't just dial it in on the normal radio in a normal way. Podcasts are just opening up your ears to the world, and I just love it from that point of view.
Yeah.
But that's how I got started, trying to find a sponsor for a project I was working on. So it's weird.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And it's funny because I don't remember when I started listening to podcasts. I remember when I started really hitting them hard, when I found Mission Log, which was really the first, I guess, no, I take that back. Serial, I think, was the first one that I heard, like the first season of Serial. And then from there, I was like, okay, these podcast things are pretty cool, because my coworkers had all been telling me, oh, you got to listen to Serial, you got to listen. I was like, I don't want to listen to a radio show. Like, I've never cared for that. But once I listened to that, I was like, okay, well, there's got to be some good Star Trek ones on there. And I found Mission Log, and that was, I think, in late 2015, maybe early 2016. And so they'd already been going for a little while. I think they were already into Next Generation by that point. And once I got caught up with those, that's when I started finding other podcasts. Like I think I started listening to melodic treks and literary treks over on Trek FM. And those were kind of, then from there, like the floodgates opened with like finding all the different podcasts out there and the different hosts that I've enjoyed listening to over the years. But I think before I even knew really what podcasts were, I was actually, speaking of radio shows, the only one I really ever listened to was Dave Ramsey's show, in his Financial Peace radio show. And I couldn't always hear it on the radio, so I'd go to his website and I'd have to listen to it on his website, like all the pre-recorded ones. And I think that's how a lot of people did their radio shows in the past, was they'd record them and just, you could listen kind of to the back catalog. And it's funny because I think once he actually started releasing it as a podcast, I'm not sure if I ever really listened to it then, but yeah, like just tons of different things out there. And I think some of you guys have already kind of said this, kind of how you're listening to them, but yeah, what's your preferred way to listen? As far as do you like to binge episodes, like save them up and binge them, or do you like kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to listen to, or you got to listen as they come out? Like how's your podcast feed looking?
So the podcatcher I use, I can choose certain shows as favorites. So those go to the top of my queue. So there's several shows from the BQN that go to the top of my queue. Some other stuff too. I listen to a lot of pop culture shows, and I've started listening to a lot more sort of narrative fiction podcasts too, which is sort of new to me. Marvel has been putting out a lot of really great narrative fiction podcasts with their characters lately. So those go to the top of my queue. And then after that, I just try to just listen to what's the oldest in my queue, and some of it back months and months and months now. So, but I do jump around and pick and choose. If something comes up that I really want to hear, I will go to that first.
For me, it's a little bit of everything. I listen to some more like news podcasts, and those I tend to listen on this as they drops because of just timeliness factor. For some of the more pop culture, I listen to a few pop culture podcasts as well, and those I tend to let them accumulate, and then I would listen to them all at one time. So I do try to listen to it at work because I do have I'm able to do that for chunks of time. So I would listen to a few of them at work on the commute, and so I would do it that way. The one way of doing it, I actually use the sort of the duration of the podcast. For the podcasts that are quick, like 5 minutes or really short, I tend to listen to them quickly just to kind of get them off the feed. And then there's a few that are the hour and a half, and those tend to stay there longer. And then eventually I do listen to them, although sometimes I sort of, depending on the topic also, some of them I skip them. So it's a little bit of everything depending on all these different factors.
Do you speed up the playback at all? Like I listen to all my podcasts on 2x speed, but
no, I still do the one. I did dabble a little bit in I used Overcast. That was one of the podcast catcher that I use, and there is a little setting that lets you do that. But I tried it for some reason. I still prefer the one time 1x setting. I'm just used to that. I don't know if it's slower or it's just I'm getting older, but I ended up listening to it that way.
Yeah.
I can't go that fast. I listen at 1.25. Go ahead, Tony.
I thought you were going to say you listen to your podcast at 128 beats per second or beats per minute. Like drum and bass. Right. Well, that was cool. I just listen to my podcast going to work, and it takes me. I have an hour's drive each way every time I do something. Go to work, and it's handy to catch up. Most podcasts tend to be about an hour long. Of course, they run over, whatever, which is not the issue. But it's a good way of catching up, especially on our network, and so I can listen to what everybody's saying and doing and catch up. Because do you know what the most frustrating thing about podcasts is? It's when you're listening to two people talking, and then they have this joke that appears right in the middle of it, and one person will get it, the other person won't get it, or they'll have a reference to a line from a movie, and they say, "Oh yeah, what movie was it?" And I'm screaming at them as if I'm in the room with them. And I can't understand why they can't hear me. And then that's just to say, but they're quite immersive podcasts, which is quite good as well.
I found myself doing that with Galaxy class on when Jim's doing his trivia. I'm sitting there just screaming the answers out, and I'm like, wife's in the other room wondering what I'm doing.
It was the Enterprise C, god damn it.
Exactly.
Or why isn't Kevin getting the answer right? Or any of them?
Yeah, let's just show how stupid Kevin can be. That's great. Thanks, guys. You're so helpful here. So it's all good. Fine.
All good. Take a deep breath, Kevin. That's better.
Well, you're
How
not
about
that stupid. I
Jim?
think you won the last time, Kevin.
Oh, I did. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Redemption. So Jim, how do you listen to yours?
I generally listen to mine when I'm like out exercising, or if I'm doing like long drives. That's usually the time I'm able. Those are usually the times I'm able to best take in podcasts. And if it's like a Star Trek podcast, specific ones, anyways, I will listen to those like right as they come out. More pop culture type podcasts, which I also do have an interest in. I'll like binge them up for like 5 or 10. In a few rare cases, even 15 episodes, and then like binge them, and then like binge them in a row.
Mm-hmm.
There are also some, because I live in Minnesota, there are also some sports podcasts dealing with the local sports teams here that I subscribe to, and those I'll like let them really backlog, and just like if there's nothing else, I'll just listen to those once in a while.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of shows that I listen to that I'm going through their back catalog and trying to catch up. And so like whenever the new shows come out, whether it's BQN or, Trek Geeks or wherever it is, like I listen to those first and then get back to my back catalog ones.
Trek Geeks, Galaxy Class, and a couple others. They're always the first ones to get listened to in my ever increasing backlog of podcasts.
Yeah. Well, it's like, Infinite Diversity, or whenever, and any of the podcasts, I guess, that are covering the newer shows, I got to watch them before I watch the next episode so that I can hear the discussion before they come up.
I don't know. Infinite Diversity seems to be kind of not as good since that new guy joined.
Yeah, it's okay.
Not as good, just the same, better. One of those. No. Different. I have a tense. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, we talked about whether you listen at a faster speed or not. I don't listen at a faster speed, but I also use Overcast as and it has an option called Smart Speed where it strips out the silence, which is amazing for podcasts because some people are. Some podcasts they're really good about editing that out, and some are not.
Yes.
And so if the podcast player strips out the silent bits, it can actually, especially for a longer podcast, it can actually shave several minutes off a podcast. It's pretty amazing.
Wow. I might have
What if you want to listen to a podcast about pauses?
Pauses.
Awkward silences.
Right. No, that's what I'm talking about. That's what it does. It takes them out.
Yeah, but what if it's all about awkward silence?
Well, you can tell it not to turn. You can turn that feature off if you listen to an awkward pause podcast. I mean, but I get enough of those in my regular life that I don't need it in a podcast.
Yeah.
I just listened to the episode that you were on with Chris on Mickey's Marvels, and I actually thought it was really funny because, again, I'm listening to it on double speed, and at the very end when you did the outro, there was like the longest pause I'd ever heard. That I don't know, like if something happened and Chris like kind of put it to the end and when he was editing it or whatever, but I'm listening to it on double speed and it was at least 15 seconds. And I actually had to check to make sure that my phone was still playing it. But it actually made me laugh because we actually put in our script to wait like 6 seconds or whatever to say the last little bit. But it just kind of kept going and going.
I can assure you that I didn't wait 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm thinking he stretched it out on accident when he was editing, maybe. But I actually got a kick out of it. I thought it was funny.
I find I'm not huge on binging a group of a podcast, but a lot of what I listen to is currently relevant. So, like, I might be a couple days behind on whatever news podcasts I listen to, and most of the Trek stuff that I listen to at least has an element of the newness to it. I mean, like, Galaxy Class and that I can set those and go like, okay, if I have a couple weeks worth of those, it's not going to be a big deal. But then I'll find like 8-part podcasts that are some deep dives into stuff that I want to listen to. And then I end up getting lost. I do that. And then I have playing catch up with the other ones, but it works. It's kind of like when everybody got TiVo, or back in the day when we when you used to record stuff on VHS tapes and you're like, wow, I got a whole week's worth of Letterman to catch up on. And, because all of a sudden you could, which was
back
nice.
when you actually could catch up on stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Before there was so much. Yes.
I still have my Star Trek Voyager VHS tapes that I painstakingly recorded each episode on somewhere in the attic.
Nice.
I did that
I have
for
all mine
3 or
too.
4 seasons and had to stop after that.
Yeah, I had a cabinet with the numbered list, and it was in a notebook, and all the tapes were numbered, and then I had to go to the list to see which numbers were what tape, and I had it cross-referenced, one with series, season, and then just the straight tapes is what they were. And
I had 2 VCRs so that if I accidentally recorded, if like I missed an episode, then I could go back and add it in and like do a tape where I would like record from the other tape so that they were all in the right order and everything.
Wow. Nice. I never had kind of time to do that, but that's pretty awesome.
I was in middle school and high school, so
That's awesome. Well, yeah, we've all kind of touched on again, we're all Trek fans, but we've all kind of touched a little bit on other podcasts we listen to. But Trek or otherwise, yeah, I'm curious to know what other people listen to. Like I'm always looking for new podcasts, and so this is almost my little selfish way to figure out what might be good out there. And I could start. I mean, I've listened to, like Chrissy was saying, like some of those like 8-part miniseries or whatever. Like some of my favorites were like 13 Minutes to the Moon, that went through the basically final 13 minutes before the Apollo 11 landed on the moon, with all the radio communications back and forth, but then just interviews with people who were there. And very interesting podcast if you're into the NASA history. There's Serial, like I mentioned, and then one that I'm actually listening to right now is called A Little Bit Culty, and it's from a couple people who were on the documentary The Vow on HBO Max about a cult and kind of getting a cult shut down. And a couple of people have started a podcast and are interviewing people who've either been in cults or know about that kind of thing, and just kind of even things you wouldn't necessarily think would be a cult, but I don't know, it's just super interesting. And like how, you always think like, why would somebody join a cult? And they kind of say nobody joins a cult. They join for the things that are actually good about it. The things that they're like the self-help things that they're getting out of it. And it kind of becomes a cult over time, or you realize that. And so it's just fascinating to listen to and, kind of get insights in that we can all be aware so we don't accidentally join a cult.
You mean like the cult of Trek fans?
Well, yeah, that's a good one, though. That's a good cult.
All power to the engines.
Although we do call Gene Roddenberry the Great Bird of the Galaxy, which sounds a little culty, maybe.
I grew up Catholic, and I had 13 years of Catholic school, so compared to that, it's fine.
No, you can tell you're in a cult if you're obsessing over something, like, and you have to wear a special shirt or special t-shirt or wear some special emblem and talk about the same subject every other week. But yeah. I'm glad we're not those kind of people.
Oh yeah, then we're fine. We're not in a cult at all. It's perfect.
We each get to pick what Star Trek gear we wear.
So yeah. So we're different because the clothes change with the show. Yeah. So that's not so bad. We're not all wearing sackcloth and ashes and ringing a little bell. Ding, ding.
Yeah, the sashes. They had to wear sashes on that in that cult that they talked about on The Vow.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. Part of it did. I don't know. It was crazy.
It's hard to lock in on, we've all got different interests, and but the range of podcasts is so wide.
Yeah.
I kind of like the sciencey ones where they're explaining, I don't know, the molecular structure of something, or the reasons why this could exist, but only because the conditions made it right, or some orbital mechanic type stuff. I like those kind of things. But we're all different. But yeah, I can't recommend any. There's one. Well, I'm not even sure if it's on the podcast, so I'll have to check that out. But there certainly is a website called, if you're interested, called Patterns of Evidence. It's a guy called Tim Mahoney. He's a filmmaker, and he did this wonderful thing. I know Jason might find it interesting, because what he does is he looked into Egyptian history to find out, was there ever a time in Egyptian history when you read in the Bible about the Exodus, all these Hebrews moving out of Egypt and eventually crossing the Red Sea, was there ever a time in Egyptian history where that was recorded? And they cannot find any evidence of it ever happening, because none of the pharaohs at the time decided to record it. But then it's interesting because you find out a lot of things. One is that you cannot plot the first and middle dynasties or histories or kingdoms of Egypt, because they didn't keep a kind of calendar in the same way that we might keep a calendar. So when they say it happened in the middle kingdom, nobody knows when the middle kingdom was and whatever. But he discovered that if you took a timeline of all the pharaohs and put them on a graph, and if you took a timeline of when the Hebrews were supposedly in Egypt and when they left, he discovered that there's a gap of about 400 years. And if you slide them back where they correspond, then everything kind of falls into place. And that was fascinating. But the Egyptologists, having written all their learned books, will never admit to being wrong, because if one of them's wrong, they're all wrong. And that's never going to happen as far as they're concerned. So so the dilemma of who's right, who's wrong, goes on and on and on. But I listen to that because that, to me, is utterly fascinating. But there you go. That's my 2 cents worth on alternative podcasts on the track. Over to somebody else.
Well, I listen to a lot of shows from the Incomparable Network, which is a collection. I think most of them started as writers for Macworld. But Jason Snell runs the network, and it is a collection of podcasts about the kind of pop culture stuff that I love. They have a couple of dedicated Star Trek podcasts. They do, like, they call them flashcasts, when they do quick reviews. So the next day after Strange New Worlds goes up, they put an episode up. That show is called The Vulcan Hello. They do a Doctor Who flashcast. They do their Star Wars show is called A Complicated Profession. They do a Marvel show called I Want My MCU TV. And then they have their main show. They have game shows. They do role-playing games. And I fell in love with almost all of their shows because, one, they're talking about things I like. Two, the hosts are really engaging and they know what they're talking about. Pretty much anything on the Incomparable Network is something I will listen to. Their role-playing game podcast is called Total Party Kill. And their main show, they just call The Incomparable Mothership. So those folks are, like I say, they're smart. They talk about pop culture intelligently, and they're really fun and funny. So I like pretty much all their shows.
The Incomparable Mothership. I like that.
Yes, their logo is a Zeppelin.
That's great.
Pre or post fire?
Pre. Because nothing says alternate history like Zeppelins.
That's true. That's very true.
So that's some shows that I think our listeners might like are over on that network.
Nice.
Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in. Going all over the place. I had to pull up my Pocket Cast desktop here because I had to think about this. Right. So first off, one that I very rarely miss. Well, first of all, I already mentioned Democracy Now! And the Majority Report. Okay. Good political analysis and basic news. Anybody listen to Face Jam?
No.
Okay. Face Jam is a Rooster Teeth podcast, and the premise is they go eat new fast food stuff and then review it. The reality of it is they go eat the new fast food stuff. They talk for half an hour about whatever adventure they had while they were trying to get the food, and then they spend about 10 minutes reviewing it, and that's that. But it's very funny. What else? I listened to, there's a great podcast called The Dissident Peasant, which is just breakdowns of history stuff. He hasn't been able to do anything in a while because he's been sick, but it's a good one. Anybody in terms of Trek stuff, if you aren't listening to Gates McFadden's Investigates, well, you are missing out.
Oh, that's a great show.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
I love that show. I don't think she's made a new season in about a half a year, though.
No, but that's one of the ones that kind of ended up in my catch-up pile. So
that's a good one.
Yeah. I also listen to one called Literary Hangover, which is basically looking at American history through some literary stuff. One of my favorites on that are the episodes about the secret diary of William Byrd of Westover, because it's this found diary of this guy who was a slave owner and a plantation owner and all of that. And it's just his day-to-day, like, today I went and had, my lunch, and then I had to go, deal with a slave that was trying to run away. And then I had to go do this and that. And it's super interesting. And what's Now and Then with Heather Cox Richardson and Joanne Friedman. That's a good one. Gets into history and current events, right up my alley. What was the other one I was going to mention? Oh, yeah. Okay. Everybody know the song Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
Mm-hmm.
I can't whistle. Anyway, Wind of Change by the Scorpions. Okay. Apparently at some point there's a rumor going around that it was written by the CIA and given to them because it's supposed to be about bringing the wall down and all of that. So there is, I think it's a 10-part series called Wind of Change. That is this guy just trying to figure it out. It's from Pineapple Street Studios and Spotify, so it's on a bigger platform. But that is super interesting, and it's a nice self-contained thing, so you can listen to that and get all the fun history.
Fun.
And I'll stop now.
And you're keeping track of all the ones you just said, right? For our list that we'll put in the show notes.
I'll do that. Didn't mean to force you to put a list in the show notes, but I was thinking, geez, if I were listening to this, I would want the list.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And yeah, we'll definitely do that. But yeah, you had a lot of good ones there for sure.
I have my 2 cents in.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dad.
Okay. I have quite a few. I'm not going to mention all of them. But if we're talking non-Star Trek, I'm a fan of a podcast called Behind the Bastards, which is hosted by Robert Evans. It's a pretty big podcast. It's on the iHeart Network. And every week he talks about a historical or present day not so nice person and tells you all of the history about them. So like we're talking like he'll go way back and talk about Nazis, but he'll also talk about present day people. And it's he gets a different guest every time, and he basically tells the story to the guest, and you hear the guest reaction, and it's pretty fun. Another historical one that I like is Revolutions. It's by Mike Duncan, who I originally found because he did a podcast called The History of Rome, where every week he talked about the history of Rome. He did from the beginning to the very end. That was really good. But now he does one called Revolutions, which is the history of various revolutions throughout history. Like right now he's doing the Russian Revolution, and that's also really cool. It's a very approachable way to describe history. Like he doesn't get, well, he does get very esoteric, but he does it in ways that you can understand what he's talking about. And another non-Star Trek one that I like. It's called Overdue, where that's two guys who read books that are relatively popular books, the sort of books that people say, oh, you should read this. And one of them will read it for the first time ever, and then will describe the book to the other. And and then they'll talk about it. And it works. It's pretty fun. On the Star Trek side, some of my favorites, other than the wonderful podcast on BQN, of course. I always listen to Weekly Trek, which it's Alex Perry. He does it Star Trek news every week. And then another one of my favorites is Trek Ranks, which is hosted by Jim Morehouse, where he comes up with what are your top 5 scenes in a shuttlecraft, or what are your top 5 foods on Star Trek? And then he gets a couple guests and they talk about it. And it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
And he does, and I've seen this podcast, and he does like talking about the fact that he was an extra on Enterprise at one time.
Oh,
also.
yes.
Oh, that's right. I know who you're talking about now. Yeah. How about you, Jim? What are you listening to?
Well, I don't. I'm looking at my backlog here. I don't have a lot of non-Trek podcasts at the moment, but one I do like listening to, and it's the only news one I actually listen to. It's called "Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me," and it's from NPR, and it's about a bunch of. It involves a bunch of stand-up comedians just reviewing the headlines of the week and just making silly commentary about them.
I listen to that. I do enjoy Wait, Wait.
Yeah,
in fact, I thought about going to see them live when we were in Chicago. There was a show the night that I arrived in town, but I didn't think I'd make it. So,
yeah, I only just found out about it while I was in Chicago, so I haven't been listening for that long. But I also listened to TV's top 5 from the Hollywood Reporter. That's a pick and choose one for me. And then on the Star Trek side, has anyone been listening to the Shuttle Pod show from Dominic Keating and Connor Trenier?
Yeah, that's a good one. They actually got Rick Berman on there.
Oh yeah,
that was really interesting. And Brandon Brega's been on it recently as well.
I like it. I listen to it in podcast form, and I've loved some of the backstory we've heard from some of the people they've gotten on.
Yeah, it definitely adds a lot of insight into that show, including the finale, which they all were upset about it being the finale and thought it was a fine episode, except that it was the finale. And even Brandon Braga.
I think the way it was worded by both Brandon and Rick in their appearances on there, they said they had to piece everything together suddenly in 4 weeks instead of however long they had originally intended for it to be. That's why it came out the way it did.
Yeah.
Is that the finale where it's really a TNG episode?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what they all said too. Yeah.
Yeah, they got the call suddenly out of the blue with 4 weeks left in the season that they weren't coming back, and they had to literally wrap up everything. They had to literally wrap up every storyline suddenly on the fly.
Yeah. Well, and then Connor Trenier, I think it was trying to be very nice about it. He was like, I know you guys are trying to wrap up 18 years or however many years it was of Star Trek, but why'd it have to be the last show? And Brandon Braga said, yeah, we shouldn't have made it the last show. That was our mistake. So it's good to hear them say that, because it's really not a bad episode, except for the fact that they made it the last one.
Yeah, no, but I've also listened to the Delta Flyers, that Voyager podcast, and I listened to Trek Ranks, and I listened to a bunch of other stuff, but they're pretty much all Star Trek at this point.
Yeah, so there's plenty out there. How about you, Peter?
Sure. When it comes to Star Trek, I'll just another vote for Trek Ranks and Weekly Trek that I mentioned already. So I listen to those, and they're great. I also like to listen to First Flight, which is a Enterprise rewatch podcast with Abby and Melanie.
That is very good.
Yeah, and that's very good, and it actually helped develop greater appreciation of the show through that. Also, a newer podcast I started listening to is Open Pike Night, which focuses on Strange New Worlds, and they accept submissions from the community in less than 90 seconds of audio clips, less than 90 seconds, talking about the previous episode and so they kind of string the clips and then they react to it, from the community. So I've been submitting clips and it's been fun, kind of in that type of interaction between the hosts and the listeners. And also I've listened to The Seventh Rule, which is with Sarah Lofton, and that's a DS9 focused podcast in which they do a rewatch, and between Sirach and Ryan Huss, the hosts, they kind of go through the Deep Space Nine. So those were some, and I've been lucky enough this year, kind of dabbled in at least being a guest. So I've been able to at least appear on Trek Ranks and Weekly Trek and First Flight. So that's fun. I've been enjoying that sort of aspect, sort of the other side of the podcast world. When it comes to the non-Trek, my second favorite fandom is James Bond. So I listen to License to Spiel. So with Dan and Carl. So it was really great to also renew my interest, because I haven't watched a lot of the Bonds in some time. So I tend to have my favorites that I watch all the time. So the ones that I don't get a chance to watch, I listen and learn some more things about that franchise. And then the one general podcast I listen to is Stuff You Should Know. So it's a general topic, a lot of different topics that they talk about. The hosts, Josh and Chuck, just talks about a lot of general topics. And so that's one of the earliest podcasts I started listening to when I got into this. And I still, I don't listen to it as frequently as I did before, because a lot of other ones sort of come up. I still try to listen to it whenever the topics are of interest. So those were some of the ones I've listened to. Mm-hmm.
Nice. Cool. Well, and I actually realized there's two others too that I didn't mention. One of them was Owl Post. So if you're a Harry Potter fan, Matthew Rushing and Drea Kaufman went through every Harry Potter book one chapter at a time, and that's how I read those books. I read it a chapter and listened to a podcast, and it was really interesting. And then the last one is Houselights, which is the hosts on there go through different directors that they like, and they'll go through like entire decades, or if it's like they have a short catalog, they'll go through every movie that directors have done. And right now it's kind of fun because they're going through Ridley Scott historical epics, but they're going through them chronologically. And so they've started with Exodus, Gods and Kings, and then I think Gladiator is next, and they're going through the historical timeline of Ridley Scott's movies. So it's a fun one to listen to. But well, we are about at time, so why don't we kind of go around one last time and let everybody know where they can find you if they want to connect with you on social media. And how about Jim? We'll start with you.
I am in and out of the Facebook group for the BQN. I am also available on Twitter at TrekFan165.
Nice. And Peter?
The best way to reach me is also via Twitter, and my handle is Peter Trek with the Trek. I'm sorry, Peter Trek 1, the number 1. So feel free to connect there. I'm also on. I'm also a co-host of the Trek Book Club, where we read and discuss Trek books on Twitter about every 6 weeks or so over a weekend. So I can be reached at Trek Book Club there as well. Thank you.
Nice. Tony.
On Twitter, I'm Shamrock165, which I've explained one time before. But anyway, Shamrock165 is where I am on Twitter. And on our collective, I will contribute from time to time, although that's still building up. So it's a whole new thing for all of us, I guess.
Yeah.
But for the moment, that's more or less where you find me.
And Thad?
Best place to find me is on Twitter. I'm at Tyrannicus. That's Tyranicus. I also do pop into the BQN Collective from time to time, but really Twitter is the place I hang out most of the time.
Nice. And Kevin?
So I am... my social media of choice is actually Facebook, so you can find me on Facebook in the BQN Collective. But if you want to look for me on Twitter, at True North Nerds, that is one of the other podcasts I do that's not on the network. So there's that. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me there too. So, I'm around.
Awesome. And Chrissy.
Okay, so yep, I'm on Infinite Diversity and History with the Szilagys here, and then you can find me on Twitter at the Goddess Livia. That's TheGoddessLivia, and there I tweet about Star Trek history and leftist politics. I'm on Facebook too. I'm not as much on Facebook, but yeah, you can find me there too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep, and you can find me on Letterboxd, Goodreads, Twitter, and Instagram at Knitting Trekkie. I'm kind of more of a lurker on Twitter and Instagram, but then you can also find me lurking in the BQN Collective on Facebook. And in addition to Mickey's Marvels here on the BQN, I also do literary treks over on TFM. So that's where you can find me. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Our very first Patrons Roundtable, the Hive. And we are planning on doing this, I believe, the second Tuesday of every month. So keep an eye out on your Patreon. Sorry. Yeah, my brain.
It's one of those days.
Second Saturday of every month. And so, yeah, please come back. We'll announce it when we're getting it scheduled. And listeners, feel free to join our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/BQN. And again, this roundtable's for people at all levels. Anything from $1 and up, everything really helps us keep the network going. So appreciate y'all being here today, and see you next time.
Bye.
BQN. Assimilate the audio.